Hi everyone, welcome to the very last of the sock knit along. I'm a little bit sad to see the end of it come, but I actually had a really good time knitting along on the sock with you. It's actually been a whole pile of fun doing it as a premiere because just being able to chat while the video goes up means that I get a real feel for what you're thinking about, how you're fitting it together, what your experience has been with different socks and different constructions and different heels and different toes and things like that. So we've gone through now doing color work in the cuff, taking a look at heel construction, and we come to the very last stage now at least for top-down socks, which is going to be the toe. In the video today, I'm going to look at, first of all, just basic toe construction and different types, and taking a look at the length you leave to allow for that, for the toe shaping. I'll show you what the short row toes would look like. I'm not going to work through one, but I will show you again like what the shaping does with the short row toe and what kind of cast-ons you'd use. But what I'm going to go and show you is how to do the decreases and how to measure the length for the decreases, and then finally how we graft the two sides of that together. So let's get started on the toe now, will we? Before I go too far on my sock, I also wanted to show you how you can go about measuring the length. Now, if they're for yourself, the easiest way I think is to just put it on and check if you're within the desired length of the top of your toe. If it's for someone else, it's going to be a little trickier. So you'll have to take the length of the decreases I've shown you. So for the two smaller sizes, about 2 inches, for the biggest size, 2¼ and work it to less than that. So if you've got a 9-inch foot length, you want to work till about 7 inches for this. So what I've done is I've knit about half of the stitches across the heel so that I can fold it and get it to fold nice and neatly here. And then stretch it out like this, and from below the needles to the back, hold it in place, to the back of the heel, you can see my one is going to be measuring 7 inches. So it should be good for a foot length of about 9 inches. That's the easiest way when it's not on your foot or on someone's foot to measure it. And I discovered this by trial and error, that the fact that if you got the stitches knit half and half here, it gives you a much easier fold line to fold along the back of the heel. Now that I've shown you how to do that, I'll show you how to do the heel decreases. And if you need to adjust this length here, just make it the length that you need for your foot, because that varies a lot from person to person. For our sock, I'm doing this type toe, where when we come down to here, we'll have decreases here and here and here and here, and the last couple of stitches will be grafted together. So it forms a little curved toe cap like this. But if you've done it the other way around, or even if it's top down, what you will have is you've got the option of doing a short row toe. In this particular case, the toe was worked first of all, and then it was used short rows and it was worked back up. It began across here with half of the width of the foot provisionally cast on. And then what we did is the very, very same method that I described for the heel, you do for the toe. But let me just point it this way. You see here, this here was the heel. So when it's at the heel, it's worked this way, and this forms the bottom, and this comes up the side. Same short row method, but worked back and forth and flattened like this, becomes a very nicely shaped toe. And if you remember correctly, and if you've forgotten, you can go back and take a look at the actual sketch last time round. You start with half of the stitches, working 1 stitch in each row, and then 1 stitch out. So it forms just a little triangle that sits on top of each other and folds in this direction. So with this one, half of the stitches were cast on provisionally. Short rows are worked in 1 stitch at a time till you reach the width of the toe you want. Then you begin working 1 more stitch going back out so that you've got 2 short row wraps to pick up on each side together until you've reached the full width of the stitches again. At that point, you can undo that provisional cast on, and you've got the other stitches live. All of the short rows have curved the top, and you have got the correct number of live stitches for the top and the bottom of the foot, and you can just join it in the round. So I find that personally the nicest way of doing a toe when it's toe down, using short rows that way, because provisional cast on is very easy to work from, and there's, you've removed all the need for grafting, so very straightforward. A little trickier if it's top down, because if you go top down, you can of course do exactly the same short row method, work your way around, and you still have half your stitches there. But then instead of having 6 stitches to graft at the top, you're actually going to have the whole row of stitches to graft. So it's actually a lot more grafting. So in that case, I'm not sure the short rows are preferable. I actually think that working the decrease method like this and just having a few stitches to graft probably is the easier method of doing it. But toe up, the short row method is fantastic. So now that I've shown you how to do what the different types look like, let's go on and see how it fits into our actual sock. I'm all ready to start on the toe of my sock now. So I have broken the main body color for the sock because I want to make the toe in this color to match up with the cuff. And let's take a look at where I'm at. When we were adjusting markers and all the rest down here, the very end, remember originally we had all these markers for decreases in the gusset here and a decrease here. And when we finished, I said to just leave the first marker in, which was the right side of the foot, which would be this one here. I don't have any here because I just used the magic loop divide as my marker. So if you're doing double pointed or if you've adjusted where it is in the round, then you'll have a marker here. But that's the right side of your foot, and that's going to be the beginning here. When we're working a traditional toe, what you're going to have is you'll have a decrease here. They'll be directional, so it's going to be an SSK or slip, slip and knit, which leans in this direction here. Just one stitch in. So you'd have one stitch, a decrease, and then come to the other side of the toe and a knit 2 together and a knit 1. And then you'll do the very same over here. I'm going to join up here and I'll show you the first round. Now, when I am joining yarn, I use a little technique that's very handy for making sure you don't have loose stitches at the start. So I'm just going to knit into the first color first of all here, the first stitch, and I'll do my SSK and then I will join the tails of the yarn. So an SSK is you slip one knitwise. Traditionally you'd slip the next one knitwise, but I want to make it a little neater, so I'm just going to slip that purlwise, then go into the front of those 2 stitches and knit them together. And that'll create my SSK. Now I'm going to grab my 2 tails from each of them over here. And as I go knit into the next stitch, just going to, like with my left hand here, if you hold your yarn in this hand, you can still do it, just kind of lift it up over like this. And as you knit or pick that stitch, just keep them out of the way. And then the next one, keep them down. So you're kind of weaving those 2 tails up and down. Next one, lift them up, but out of the way of the needle so you're not knitting them. Next one, hold them down and knit them in. And I'll do that for a few stitches. It's not going to be a perfect weaving in, but what it will ensure is that you've got a nice even tension at the start and you're not going to have any loose stitches there. All right, that should be enough. You can see it zigzags up and down. I usually come back afterwards then and just weave those in, but that's enough to keep it nice and secure. I'm just going to keep knitting away over here now until I reach those final 3 stitches on this side. And then we're going to do the second decrease that will lean towards the right for me. As fast as I can here. The downside of knitting on camera is that you never seem to be fast enough when you're trying to reach a point in your knitting. Okay, almost there now. You can see how magic loop makes it particularly easy because you've got a divide in front and behind, so really simple. This is our knit 2 together and knit 1. Turn our work around. Okay, slip this down, and again, because it's magic loop, keep our working needle in front with the stitches up on the top. Slide this out so I've got my 2 loops in each side, and keep that working yarn here at the back always. We're going to do the very same thing again here. Knit 1. I'm going to do SSK again. I'll do this kind of tighter SSK. Slip 1 knitwise, slip 1 purlwise, and then knit those 2 together. And I'm not going to make you wait while I knit all the way down here, but I'm going to knit all the way again till I get to the last 3 with the knit together and a knit 1. Once I finish that round, the next round is just going to be a plain knit round. So I'll knit all of the stitches around. And then for my size, I'm going to repeat those 2 rounds. So basically, you know, the decreases again with the plain knit round in between 8 more times. And then after that, I'm going to do decreases much more rapidly. So you'll take out the knit round, and that decrease round that I've just been showing you there, you'll do that by itself 5 times. When I finish that, I'm going to have 12 stitches for all sizes left. So then I will graft the front and back together. And I'm going to just do my decreases now, and I'll show you how I do that grafting. I have finished all of the decreases for my toe here, and I just pulled out my measuring tape so I could show you the length we're looking at. You see, it makes it very easy to measure when you've got a change of color, because this is where the color changes, and this is the tip of our toe. It's just shy of the 2 inches. So that's where I was talking about, where when you're measuring the length of your foot from the heel to the top of the toe, you can stop the straight section, or before you change color, if you're going to change color, 2 inches before the total length, because there's going to be 2 inches worth of decreases up here. And now that I have that decrease done, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to graft our stitches together. I'm going to straighten my stitches up along here, and I will need to break my yarn. You don't need a terribly long length of yarn for grafting the stitches, because we've only got 6 stitches on each side. So this is magic loop, and it's quite convenient because I can just leave 6 stitches on each side of the magic loop. If you've got double pointed needles, you can do the same thing with just 6 on each double pointed needle. What we'll be doing is sliding them on up to the very tip here. Now we've left, maybe I think from 6-8 inches kind of way of yarn. You don't need a huge amount. And I'm going to thread this is darning needle. Sometimes you call it tapestry needle. They're all fairly similar. It doesn't have to have a bend on the end. That is just a little bit more convenient. Now the yarn's coming from the back here. And what we're going to do to set up is the first 2 steps are going to be, these are our front needles here, these are our back needles. When I say knitwise, it's as if you were going to knit the stitch, so it's going to be from left to right. And when I say purlwise, it means from right to left, as though you had a knitting needle and you were going to purl it. So they're the basics of what I'll be kind of describing as I'm going through. So to set up on the front needle, the one near me, I'm going to go in purlwise, which will be from right to left. Pull the yarn through and leave it on the needle. And then the next step is we're going to go in knitwise into the back needle. You have to be very careful that you don't loop over like this. So bring the yarn between the 2 needles and then go in as if to knit. So from left to right onto that back needle. Again, you can see, look, it really easily just ends up trying to loop over my needle. So that is the biggest thing to watch out for, is no extra loops. The other thing is watching your tension, but you can come back to that afterwards. Now they're the setup rows, and now we're going to work the 4 steps that you'll repeat until you reach the end. So the front needle, we're going to go in knitwise onto the first stitch, slip it off and tighten it up. Oh, let me move that out of there. Step 2 is we're going to go in purlwise onto the front one and leave it on. Then we're going to go purlwise on the back and take it off, and knitwise onto the back and leave it on. And those are the 4 steps. You're going to try and just tighten the yarn up enough that you get as close to a knitted stitch as possible, but not so tight that you're distorting the knitting, because then it's just going to look like a sewn bind off and you lose any benefit. I'm going to keep doing this here until I reach the last 2 stitches. So knitwise, take it off, tighten up, purlwise, leave it on, purlwise on the back, take it off, tighten up, knitwise, remember, watch my looping, on the back and leave it on. Knitwise on the front, take it off, purlwise on the front and leave it on, purlwise on the back and take it off, tighten up, and knitwise on the back and leave it on. Knitwise on the front, take it off, purlwise on the back and leave it, on the front, leave it on, purlwise on the back and take it off, knitwise on the back and leave it on. We're almost at the end here. Knitwise on the front, take it off, purlwise on the front, leave it on, purlwise on the back, take it off, and knitwise on the back and leave it on. Now you'll see you've just got 2 stitches left on the needles. So you're just going to do whatever you're able to do at this point, really. So at this point, you're going to go knitwise on the front and take it off. And of course, you don't have another one left, so you can't do the next step. So you move on to the back one, and it's going to be purlwise, or go into the needle there, purlwise on the back and take it off. Now, to kind of tidy this up, I find the neatest way to just, well, first of all, with our grafting here, you can see the first ones here are a little bit loose. So what you can actually do is just tighten these up as you're working your way through. So you can just tighten the stitches up to work through. And then any extra yarn you have left, you can pull through on the other end. And then what we're going to do is, once I've got that done, I will usually then make sure you don't pull it too tight again, like I was saying. And you do the same thing if it's too loose. You could go ahead and you could also kind of loosen it up a little bit. So what I'm going to do here is just pop this in, and I'll usually at that point turn my sock inside out and then just pull, where are we? Pull that in here, because it'll also help get rid of any potential little blip you have in the corner here. And then I will just weave that yarn in along here on my, you can see I've got lots of bits to weave in, but I'll just weave in a few times one way and then back the other direction, and I'll cut it off. And that's your first sock done. So once this one is finished now, I'm going to go and knit a second one, but I'm going to reverse the colors, because that way the 2 skeins of 50 grams that I've got should be enough for a pair. It won't be a matching pair, but I think it could be kind of fun to have the two different. So go ahead and finish that, and please post up on carolfeller.com when you have done. All right, everyone, we finished our sock knit along, and I have my first finished sock. Now, the challenge for me is going to be to make the matching pair for this before Christmas. So fingers crossed that I can kind of get myself moving a little bit faster with this and actually get it out of the gate by Christmas, which would be wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you enjoyed learning lots about socks. Maybe some of it was new to you, maybe some of it was a refresher, but thank you for joining me.